Ladies and gentlemen, my next guest is Jody. He is a practitioner, a healer. He helps people out in Guatemala. I was actually referred to him. I'm actually in Guatemala myself. So they told me to talk to this guy. He's very knowledgeable. We're talking off air, and he's very informative. So he agreed to jump on my podcast, and here we are. Jody, how you doing, man?
Feeling good.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
good, good. So I like to hear. So tell me how you help people, brother.
Well, yeah, I kind of identify as a soul coach, um, and secondarily as a kind of mentor and a healer. And so I help people who are in a place where they have uh, massive curiosity and excitement for transformation and for breaking through,
That's exactly
breaking,
where I am.
yeah, right,
Yeah.
breaking out, breaking through from, the 3D societal constrictions that we've been conditioned into or programmed into.
Can you also say breaking out, or instead of saying that, you could say like looking behind the veil?
Definitely,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm all about piercing the veil.
Piercing the veil. Yeah. We'll get into that
Oh
shortly.
yeah,
Yeah.
sure thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Nice. Um. So, I mean, you're like a mentor to a lot of people around here.
I, I do my work. I show up. I do my thing. People come, they come, great.
Yeah.
And
I
if
mean,
obviously I work with people in different locations around the world remotely,
yeah.
as much as a few handful of people here who
Well,
I work with.
I talked to one girl, and she's a Reiki healer.
Hmm.
She's the one that actually referred me to you. I don't have to name her, but um, I wanted her to jump on the podcast, and she's like, "Oh, my Spanish this, my English this," and he's like, "You know who you should really talk to? Who's beyond interesting? His name is Jody." I'm like, "Who's Jody?" He's like, "Jody, Jody." I was like, "Okay," and here we are, man. We've been talking. You said you help people look beyond the veil, and you have it in a different term. You said three breaking out of that 3D world.
Yeah.
Do you think we live in like a virtual reality world, in a sense?
So yeah, so this is a great question, and one that is definitely worth exploring. Some people talk about it's a simulation, we're all in
Yeah.
a simulation, etc.
Yeah.
And I think these are all great models and concepts for us to kind of think around, so that we can have greater capacity to understand the nature of reality. Um, so, uh, say let's take this.
Continue.
Oh,
Okay. Go, go,
yeah.
go. Yeah, you're good.
Yes, so let's take this example of your question around the simulation or this kind of virtual reality. So I would just say it's more like we're in a certain level of a game,
Mm-hmm.
like a video game,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
And it's like, say, level one, just, for
Hypothetically speaking.
hypothetically
Yeah, yeah.
speaking. So there's all these other levels to the game, but you have to get through level one, complete the tasks.
Right. But who invented the game, and why are we playing the game?
Oh, yeah,
And why is
exactly.
it called a game? So that's, I mean, forget the levels. I would be more concentrated on that.
Mm.
Who invented the game?
Yeah, these are really important questions.
Right.
And
But
of course, reality doesn't conform to our limitations either, because it's, yes, our personal reality can do because of the nature of how our perceptions co-create the existence that we find ourselves in. But on another level, there's so much more, and so we're always being prompted, whether we listen to them or not, whether we're aware of it or not. We're always being prompted by, let's say, the creators of the game
mm-hmm.
to look outside the what we think is real and what we accept as real. If that makes any sense to you.
Yeah, it does make sense to me actually. So, okay, we're being encouraged. But then again, do we have the power to rid the game or rewrite the game? In our, if you, well,
I'm absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Because technically, you are a player in the game.
Yeah.
That just reminds me of, dude, we just went to the Matrix. Literally, literally, you're like in the Matrix. Some rules are made to be bent. Some rules are meant to be broken. And I've seen this because I was talking to you about Joe Dispenza's
Mm,
retreat that I've gone to, and I've seen people completely cure themselves of cancer.
mm,
And I'm telling you, that was kind of like a pivoting point in my life when I saw this person do that, and all they really wanted, they didn't want wealth, they didn't want fame, they didn't want to travel the world. All they wanted was, seems very simple, to be healthy, and they had stage 4 cancer, and they worked on it very, very, very hard, and they got it. So when I saw that happen, when someone like when doctors in modern medicine's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, there's no hope for you. It's time to say your goodbyes," and they're able to cure themselves of that, like, "Oh, okay, well, if they could do that, sky's the limit, or there's no sky. What
mm.
can I not do?" Right? But
Yeah.
they wanted it more than me because their whole existence depended on it. Like they needed yeah, they didn't want to. They needed to be healthy
Mm,
because I saw them and they're in pain and suffering.
mm,
So then they had the proper motivation just to be healthy. You know what I mean?
mm.
Like if I had that motivation, I could literally do anything. I have $1 billion right now and a Ferrari. You know, but do I really want it that badly? No. Okay, I'm talking too much. Elaborate, man. feel,
Mm.
feel free to jump. But do you understand what I'm going with this?
Sure. We don't necessarily have mm, much of the objective empirical data or science to explain these things still. Of course, there are wonderful people and wonderful organizations dedicating their lives to, mapping all of this and measuring it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's still really just very small in comparison to all the other, so-called science, which is it's coming from a place that is broken.
Yeah. Well, the reason behind that is because I'm talking to a lot of scientists now, and I'm trying to understand it from their view because you kind of have to. The 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 problem is science is it comes from the what do they call it? You do experiments
Mm,
and you do a hypothesis and you have the scientific method. That's
mm,
the word, scientific method.
mm,
And then you break it down. It's A, B, C, D, and then you get E.
mm,
But with the consciousness is very, very different. There's 8 billion people in this world, or close to it, and there's 8 billion ways of people thinking. There's 8 billion ways of people growing up, feelings, emotions. Everyone is different. You can't apply that. The scientific method does not apply it in that sense. And of course, you need to have a consciousness to be able to manifest things,
mm,
right? And it just won't work. The scientific method and the way science measures things does not work when it comes to consciousness and the human thought process. That's the problem, or that's what most people are pointing to.
mm. Well, we're such subjective, creatures,
Yeah.
you know, and that is, one reason why that science, the scientific method, true scientific method, is so important. However, I don't believe and I don't see that the true scientific method is being practiced. What
Yeah.
what is being practiced is a kind of church.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot.
And it's a mafia and it's a church. And
Yeah.
really, when you really start to look and
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
do the research yourself and look at the sociology of science and the economics of science, I'm sure you're aware, right? You're
Big
you're
time now.
nodding to me,
And
right?
and actually, scientists have told me this. They're like, right now, there's a lot of bandwagon science. Oh, this science worked 20 years ago, or this experiment. Oh, let's piggyback on it.
Mm,
And they're not willing to try new things. And one problem with science is now or even modern medicine, that they're not trying to solve the problem or stop the problem from starting in the first place. They're like, oh, this person has this disease. How can we stop it when it's already like in later on? And like why don't we just stop it when it's in its infantry? You know, there's no money in it.
Of course. So
So,
there's
yeah,
profits. It's
yeah, there's
profit
profits,
driven.
brother. Yeah, yeah, that's the issue.
So that's it's not for benevolence, it's for profit, and that's the problem.
But then again, let's circle back to that's where people like you come in. You could literally stop the problem from happening, or like if you help someone, it's like the process of they're giving a man a fish. They can't fish for themselves,
Mm.
you know. Versus someone like you that's a practitioner, someone hires you for a couple months, you give them you help them empower themselves, and you're teaching them how to fish, so they're not starving or hungry.
Exactly.
You like the
Yeah.
way I circle back into it?
Yeah. 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 Nice.
You know what I mean? But that's what Joe Dispenza does for me.
Mm.
He taught me that I have the power of God within me,
Mm.
that I can change my own world. And guess what? If I won't have everything in the world, all I want to do is just help other people, the less fortunate.
Mm.
Because there's an abundance of everything we want, and I don't want the flashy Ferrari. I don't need the Porsche because none of that shit's gonna make me happy.
Mm.
You know, traveling makes me happy. That's why I'm over here in Guatemala with you.
Mm.
But also, if I see someone starving, I will stop and help them. Just it's just the right thing to do, and I have the extra money to do it,
Mm.
which is a blessing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I see that because you messaged me and then said, yeah, I have this podcast, and I looked the podcast up, and it's like, okay, you started this podcast recently, but it's been consistent weekly, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of episodes already,
Yeah.
and that says something about you and your personality and your character.
Yeah. I'm persistent, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to be persistent. I want to get, but here's the thing: when we're talking about metaphysical, or I don't want to call it pseudoscience, but we'll call it fringe science. It's on the fringe of science fiction and fiction.
Mm.
Dude, there's a lot of different avenues you could take. Yeah, no matter how persistent I am, I told you off air. I feel like every time I get closer to the answer, someone changes the question around on me. So yeah, yeah. So yeah, I have 50. I mean, like it's been 6 months. I already have like 50 episodes under my belt,
Mm.
and I mean I'll have many more. But it's just that childhood curiosity. I just want to know
Mm.
more.
Mm.
Like, why don't we teach stuff at school?
Mm.
Why don't we teach kids that they can empower themselves? I mean, I already know the answer. They want you to work in a factory, or just have minimal intellect, or have minimal self-esteem. You know.
Well, I mean, yeah, the education system is broken. Um, I mean, it never was good in the first place because it was about making units of production, really. Persons that would then go into the factory or go into wherever to, with the skills to do the thing that was necessary for the people who had the money and the power to do more of and to, whatever, grow things in that way. But it was never about you as a human being reaching your full potential,
Yeah.
and it still isn't. And so I look back at everything I learnt at school, and I'm just like, yes, of course, learning about the English language was interesting and useful. Learning how to write and read, of course. Learning how to calculate and work with numbers, of course, very useful. They're the basics. Learning a foreign language, also useful, depending on, in my case, I'm very interested in languages, so I love learning different languages. So that was great. History, interesting,
It is.
however,
A little
very, very biased.
right for the
Uh,
bitters, right?
yeah, and so it's actually everything that I learnt in history is actually a lie when I really look into it. It's all like all stories.
Suede, yeah, yeah. This
And
story
it's
is
like,
about the bitters.
yeah, it's like exactly. And then how we want to be portrayed in, now from, look, this is what happened in the past that made us who we are now. And it's like, well, that's what you want me to think, it's propaganda of one way or another. It's a war of perception. And so that perpetuates a certain status quo that actually I don't agree with and isn't aligned to who I really am. So I need to let go of those stories and believing in like the Second World War, things like that, right? Which are like so
Hollywoodized.
Hollywoodized and overdone and
Uh-huh.
everything else. And when you really look into it all, it's like, no, that's not actually the case. That didn't happen the way they say it happened, or not for the reasons that apparently, because it's all it's all perception based
Right, right, of the victors.
of the victors, or
Right.
the historian of the victor is in a perceptual bubble that they can't get out of, and they're
Is that what you
uh,
help people do? Try to get out of that own bubble, their own bubble?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely
Okay.
stepping out of the bubble. And so, we look at your own story, right?
Yeah.
Your own past, because that informs everything that's happening now in your life, whether you understand that or not, whether we see that or not. It's all happening with our way of perceiving reality, um, our behaviors from traumas, from what we experienced as a child in our infancy, how our parents behaved, how our primary caregivers behaved towards us, how our school teachers behaved towards us, what they told us, what they did. They were all models, and
Not mine.
we've modeled them.
Not my teachers, dude. They told me I was gonna be a failure.
I mean, that's very
Yeah,
unhelpful.
well, because I was a bad kid. That was very helpful. But actually, surprisingly, that's what encouraged me to go to college.
It's very interesting, isn't it? Because it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah, I was like, F you
the
guys.
reverse of it.
Yeah, I was like, I'm going to college. And yes, so when I
Yeah.
got to college, I didn't really have the tools to study, but I tried harder than everyone, and I graduated college, dude, above average. And then now I'm doing pretty good in life, probably more than what they're making, but that doesn't matter. But uh, but yeah, a lot of them told me
Well,
they're like, you should
in
be a plumber or something.
some ways, the good thing is that you didn't pass with flying colors,
No, I didn't.
because if you do pass with flying colors, it means you're very good at playing the game, their game,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Which is broken.
I'm like a B student, not an A student.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
You need to be a
yeah,
B, not an A.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I'm
In
not a.
general, of
I
course, no
get it. I
offense
get it.
to anyone who's passed with flying
Right,
colors,
right, right,
but you find that the anti-leaders of this world,
right.
the false leaders of the world,
They're the
the
C's
ones
actually.
that are pushed to the top, right? Um, they knew how to play the game for their own benefit, and but their soul is corrupted, and so that is why they are in the position they're in, because the toxicity in the world, that is the reason why it's in a mess, right? With all this technology and all this intelligence and all these great minds, it's in it's a total mess. It's a complete mess.
Why
Like
do you think
we
power
use,
corrupts?
um,
I mean, yeah, there's a simple answer, but why? Why do you? I want to know why Jody thinks it.
because the it magnifies impurities.
Okay.
So the more mess you have inside, the more darkness, the more shadows, that is, the more toxic behavior, toxic ideas, toxic emotions, the more power you have, the more that is amplified. Because who's calling you out if you're the most powerful person in your environment?
Nobody, dude. Just look at Joseph Stalin.
Yeah.
They were so scared of him that he had two guards in front of his office. He had a heart attack and he dropped dead. And his two guards were too terrified to go into his room and check up on him. And they're like, if they did, he would have lived. But I watched the documentary on him. But he just died because they were just too afraid to go in there. Until some other general came in and he had a meeting or something. They're like, bro, this guy's been dead. Didn't you guys hear anything? Like, we're just too scared. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my
But,
God.
yeah. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, it's something I think about a lot and meditate on a lot, because I'm fascinated with leadership, and and inevitably draws you towards, well, who is leading, and currently in the world, and who has been a leader, and who's failed and who's succeeded, and have they succeeded in a way I think is success,
Mm-hmm.
like I bow down to, I aspire to, or is it succeeded in a way that
They see themselves.
invariably
Yeah,
is like
they had.
the broken, the shadow, and that's often the case. So um, yeah, it's this whole thing around leadership, I feel, is sadly so distorted, actually. And of course, there are many great leaders out there, right? They
At
may
least they start off at great leaders.
Right, but they may be unsung heroes. So they may be actually a great leader, may be someone who's running a foundation that's just purely benevolent for the world. Um, if they're the leader of a country, it's less likely
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
because they're placed there. Of course, they're not really calling the shots.
Yeah. But does it?
So it's like they're corrupt enough for it to work because they're doing the bidding of others, right? And so there's all of that as well. But then, that's the toxic style of leadership, and I try to think about leadership, what is benevolent and valuable and principled, and how we can then extrapolate that out, multiply that out into all aspects of life. So how we lead our own lives, and then become models, right? Because as I was saying before about our childhoods, those our primary caregivers, our parents, our teachers, the adults around us were our leaders,
Mm-hmm. They were.
and invariably it's the blind leading the blind. So
That's how. That's how I see it with my parents. It's kind of sad, but it's true because they have their own limited beliefs. They didn't really have the internet. They grew up in the Soviet, and when they're trying to guide me, um, it's not very practical. I mean, they're good people. They want the best for me, but they have their own limited beliefs. You know,
yeah,
they keep on saying just get married, have kids, get married, have kids. I'm like, if I meet someone I would love to do that. But like a lot of people,
that's a lot of pressure.
yeah, you want to bring that mic a little closer? Yeah,
Sure.
there you go. Yeah, it is a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And I see people getting married for the wrong reasons and they get divorced or their lives are miserable. I could tell because they drink a lot. They go to whorehouses, and I'm like, I don't want that to be me, you know.
Yeah.
And plus, I think they just want me to play it really safe versus just flying to Guatemala and me and a random guy and having
Yeah.
chocolate milkshakes with them.
Well, it's the cage of the comfortable.
Yeah, and I seek discomfort. And I
Yeah,
mean,
and that's very healthy. I mean, obviously, as long as you're applying a sort of protection and logic of safety to your personal, you you're not
yeah.
running in front of cars and things
No,
like
no,
that.
no,
Of
no, no,
course,
not that discomfort. I'm not saying jumping
of
from.
course, we understand that. We understand
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But some people might
Yeah.
misconstrue it, like, oh well, right, because perception and
Well,
the shadow aspects of self, the ego, will use any data, any information to maintain its position, to keep the status quo, keep the cage of the familiar going,
but here's the
right?
thing. That's why I love traveling so much because I'm walking into the unfamiliar, and I cannot predict what's going to happen. Like when I went to Pana, the city,
Mm.
Panajaba, I don't know how to say it.
Panajachel, yeah.
Panajachel. I didn't know what to expect. I've never been to Guatemala. It's not Mexico. It's very different. My previous thoughts and feelings and emotions, I couldn't project that on the future, which I love. So I went in with an open mind, and it was great, dude. I went in, walked around, I had some street food, had some coffee, had some tea. I talked to some locals. Guess what? I'm safe. I walked back. That's it. But that's what I love about traveling. You get what I mean?
Oh yeah.
That's what I mean. I was out of my comfort zone.
Mm.
Because honestly, it wasn't like I walked to the local Starbucks. I grabbed my latte like I do every day. That's comfort.
Mm.
I'm out of my comfort zone.
Mm.
It's
Isn't it
uncomfortable.
rewarding?
It's very rewarding. Are you kidding me? I'm here right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to hike a volcanic mountain next week. I
Nice.
just set it up. That's And I'm taking not mushrooms, marshmallows. That's something else. I'm taking marshmallows with me because I'm gonna do it. There's like volcano coming down, and you just roast it on it,
Oh,
and that's
nice.
very
Like
rewarding to me.
lava. There's
Yeah,
like a lava
lava.
flow.
Yeah, there's a lava flow, and you roast the marshmallows. Or you could do mushrooms too if you want, but I don't know if you want to do it there. But by the way, I don't do any of that stuff. That's why I went to the dark meditation retreat because I
Mm,
thought I would have a psychedelic experience, but
mm.
nah, it was,
I mean, you can do.
you can,
Yeah.
yeah. But I've had it doing Kundalini breath. I don't know if you ever had that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, a few times.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Breath work is a wonderful device for
yeah,
opening up the consciousness.
um, tell me some cool stories, dude. Because right before I was gonna ask you if you know any cool stories, and I'm like, wait, maybe we should save this for when we're on the air.
Exactly, yeah.
Anything, it's all open, dude.
Yeah, so cool stories.
Maybe some people were able to help themselves. Because ideally, I want people to watch this and just be able to help themselves.
Yeah. So one example, well, okay, when I was 22,
Okay.
I was in India. I felt this great desire to go to India. So I'll just circle back a little bit. Like a couple of my friends had been to India,
Okay.
and I was thinking this would be a great place to go. My grandfather had been stationed there during the Second World War, and so it was definitely in my field. My cousin had been, I think my uncle had been, so it was like it was definitely there, right? It's that sort of a thing, right? And so I actually, I saved up some cash, and I went for it. And when I arrived in, it's like a 6 month. I got a 6 month ticket.
Oh, you went for 6 months?
Yeah. When I arrived, I literally flew over Mumbai, city of
Mm.
Mumbai, which is the second largest city but perhaps even the first. I don't know. It's not the capital, but it's in the west. It's where the center of Bollywood, right?
Yeah.
We're coming in over the city, kind of circling, right? And you could smell the slums.
You can
There
smell
was
them
this,
from the plane?
yeah, from the plane.
Really?
Yeah, really, really. And I was like, oh, what? Oh no.
like, like I made a mistake or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then landed, doors opened, the heat just came off the plane, walked into the terminal building. The whole place was just like falling apart. Cracks everywhere, things, kind of panels falling out of the ceiling,
I find that beautiful.
cobwebs, like the whole deal. There's airport security had like World War II rifles.
What, like a musket or what?
Not quite, but
no, but yeah, one bullet in. Yeah, okay.
I was starting to, I was on my own, right? And I was starting to think, I've made a mistake. I think I've made a mistake here. Like, what the hell am I doing in this place? I arrived in the terminal, in the international terminal building. Arrivals, the airline staff couldn't help. My luggage hadn't turned up. The airline staff were really unhelpful.
Yeah.
There was like, okay, go to the tourist office, which was just like a little desk.
What year was this, by the way?
1998.
Okay.
It was January 1998.
Okay, like 25 years ago.
Yeah, it was the 11th of January 1998.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the 10th, actually. Yeah, it was the 10th. And there was nobody there at the tourist office, let's say, which was just a little desk, a dirty little wooden desk. And you had to wait around. And the guy finally came back. He'd been on lunch, and he spoke, fairly good conversational English. And I was like, okay, I need a place to stay. And he's like, got out this big folder, and
This is before internet, ladies and gentlemen.
this is way before the internet, and opened it up, and there was just like dirt and just like it was just everything was dirty. It was just like he was leafing through these kind of pages, and it was just all dirty. And I was just like, what the hell is this place? Who are these people? What are they doing? Why have I come here? This is crazy. Um, he phoned some guy up, you know, and the guy eventually turns up in this old Morris Minor car thing, and and takes me.
You
And
don't even know where you're going.
no,
Okay.
but it was just he had a like a room, a guest house or whatever,
Sure.
and
A slaughterhouse, maybe. Who knows?
yeah, and you know, driving through the streets of Mumbai was shocking. It was really, really shocking. And I just, you know, came across just thousands of people
How
living
old
on
were
the
you?
street.
How old were you?
I was 22.
Was it your first time out of England?
It was my first time out of Europe,
Europe,
Western Europe.
Western Europe. Okay. So it wasn't like nice, clean
Actually, I'd
Italy.
been to Poland once,
Yeah.
which was already, you know,
Poland's okay.
second world in
Yeah,
at that
second world.
time. At
Yeah.
that time, it was second world. It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
in transition from communism to capitalism. But this was a whole other level. I mean, this was like really in your face, you know, children on the streets, you know, disheveled, dirty,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, families there on the streets. No, so you don't have a home, you don't have anywhere to go. They're just like there.
Yeah, you're not used to that.
I've never seen anything like that in my life. It was shocking. It was deeply shocking.
So it's safe to say culture shock.
Massive. And nothing prepares you for it, to be honest.
Okay.
And that was shock,
Okay.
deep shock. And I was on my own, right? I had nobody and nothing. Um, I mean, yeah, I had my money and a couple of credit cards and some traveler's checks. Anyway, ended up, you know, staying in this guest house, for someone's house, um, and it was very interesting to see this new perspective
Ha-
in the world and this new reality
Did
for
you,
myself.
when you got there, did you leave as the same Jody as that came into that country?
Definitely not.
How so? Spiritually?
I mean, the transformation I went through was very profound.
Was it humbling? That
Very, yeah, very.
were you,
Yeah, my values definitely changed.
good.
Yeah, I was able to appreciate what the comforts and the life and the protections and the laws we have in
Yeah.
in our Western societies
Yeah.
so
You mean the
much
fact
more.
that rich people can't stomp on poor people?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's huge. You know, it really is. And being in a country which is, you know, I mean, it has you know, India has everything, especially now as well. Like it still has the old and all of that, the sacred and
I really want to go.
traditions. Oh yeah,
But I
it's
told myself I'm going for 3 months. It's not worth going for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. You can't really see it. I want to go to Ladakh, see the prayer flags. I want to go to Mumbai, of course. I want to go to a city called Calcutta, where surprisingly there's a lot of Armenian people.
oh really?
Yeah, because there's that trade from Armenia to India.
Oh
So
yeah.
they have churches that were built in the year like 700.
Oh
And
really?
yeah, yeah. So they even have this thing where you go through, if you're Armenian, they'll give you a place to stay for free
Wow.
in the church. It's like a little, like a hostel room.
Yeah.
But still, hey, man, they'll help you out. But I also want to go for spiritual aspects because apparently there's a lot of very enlightened souls out there, as we could say.
Yeah, there's definitely it's you know, the spiritual awakening path is definitely more honored and nurtured in India. But actually the whole reason I brought India up was 'cause I've been there several times and had
Hmm.
several different lives in India. Um, was that I went to Nepal.
I want to go there too, dude. I heard it's better to go. I mean, finish your story, and then I'll tell you.
Yeah, thanks. And I was trekking in Nepal in the Annapurna Range, and it was I didn't have a guidebook, didn't
Good.
have a guide.
No, by that time, there was no TripAdvisors at this time. No, there's no, there's no Google Maps.
Um, you know, it was I had a book which described a route.
Good luck, man. I've
And so that
oh, man.
that
Good luck.
no maps, nothing. So, and of course, what happened was that I lost the trail, I lost the path,
Of course you did.
and found myself on the edge of a rock face actually, and sort of late afternoon. The village I was heading for was a place called Chomrong, and when I got to that rock face, I was like, well, this is kind of like break. This is make or break. And what I thought I saw was a path below the rock face.
Mm-hmm.
I could sort of, there's foliage in the way and stuff, so you can really make out. But it looked like, I was like, this is my best bet. This is the path that I've lost that I want to get back onto. All I need to do is get down this rock face.
You sound like you're in the Shire, and you're going to deliver the ring, man, and then you just going through a mountain. Okay, and then
Yeah, it was very much like that. It was very much like that. I was actually watching Lord of the Rings the other day. So I started lowering myself down this rock face, and there was a point where I was like, okay, I need to lose my bag, otherwise I'm going to be a lot less nimble, right? So I just like dropped my rucksack, and it just kind of like tumbled down to the bottom. I'm like, cool, okay. And then I kind of like lowered myself, just to get these ideas in your head if you don't have experience. There was like a ledge.
And did you ever cross you like this is too difficult? This is not a path, or no, not at this
Well,
time.
by this point, I'd already kind of got down further enough that there wasn't even a way to get back. It was
Okay.
just like one of those situations. You're like, oh
Yeah,
dear,
yeah.
oh
Yeah.
dear. But and there was this little ledge that was actually, it wasn't horizontal. It was sloped, but it was a lot less sloped than the sheer rock face itself. So I was like, I want to lower myself down onto that ledge,
Okay.
and then I can maybe just sort of try and slide my way down the rock face. Anyway, there was this tree sticking out, and I thought, okay, I'm going to grab hold of this tree trunk, small tree, and then lower myself down from this tree, like, I don't know, like, I got hold of the tree. I was like a monkey on this tree. Then the tree started coming out of the rock.
Oh man, ladies and gentlemen, I'm shaking my head. So what happened after?
So
did you fall or?
So this is the crux point. I'm there holding on for dear life on this tree that's falling out, that the rocks and dirt is coming out of where the tree was in, and it's like, okay, there's only a matter of time, like seconds, before this goes and I go with it. And it was in that moment I heard the words "let go."
Really?
Yeah.
And there's no one around you.
No one around me. It was just like, let go. And I was like, okay, in pure trust. I had no other option anyway, really. I mean, yeah, I had the option of clinging on. So I just let go. I hit the little ledge, bounced off it, because obviously with the velocity, and it was only literally like half a foot to maybe 2/3 of a foot wide. Bounced off it, head first forward, down the rock face. And it was like tumbling all the way down to the bottom.
What, like 20, 30 meters?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was a situation, it was, so it was head first. So it was tumbling, roly-poling, head first, at high speed,
Sure.
And then I'm suddenly at the bottom of this thing, but I'm hyperventilating at this point.
Yeah,
Like, it was like,
because you cannonballed head first down there.
I mean, the adrenaline was just off the scales.
So something told you let go. Like,
let go, yeah.
did you ever dive into what that was? I mean, was it like your inner guide?
It was
your higher
it was
being?
my spirit guides basically.
And you heard it,
Guardian angel, spirit
and you
guides.
heard it as clear as day, like me and you talking, or was it like more internal, like
It was more of a whisper,
it was more of a whisper?
but it was very clear.
There's a saying that says, "The devil shouts and angels whisper."
Yeah,
So that just reminded me of that.
yeah. Um, I mean, it was remarkable because I was, apart from a little scratch,
Mm-hmm.
a gash on my arm, my forearm, which you can't even see anymore.
You're completely fine.
I was absolutely fine, and I could have broken my neck, you know, easily. And then, so then I ran. I started walking. I was like, realized, okay, there's no path here at the bottom of this thing, and there's no way I'm going back up. And I just started wandering through the forest, and then I started to sort of get worried and panic because it was starting to get dark, and I started like sort of shouting out like, hello, 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 someone,
Okay.
anybody there? I mean, it was desperation. And then I heard like, was this an echo or is that another voice? And I was like, no, this is another voice calling back to me. And as I kind of went through the forest, there was bits where there was a clearing, and then I could see across the valley, and there was this little blue dot on the other side of the valley. And I was thinking, is that where the voice is coming from? And I kept going, got closer, 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 kept shouting out. Then there would be another voice come back, and then I finally got to a point where I could get close enough that I could see that there was a figure. And I'm like, oh my God, there's a human being, and they're like there in the nothingness.
Uh-huh.
And I went down to the bottom of this slope valley, and there was a river, and this person was on the other side of it. They'd come down. And it was a little woman. She was like 4 foot high. She was like a tribal
Mm-hmm.
hill person, shepherdess, basically.
A shepherd.
Yeah,
Okay. But a lady shepherd. Got
a
it.
lady
Yeah.
shepherd. Yeah, and she just kind of, we just kind of communicated with just gestures and everything. She said, "Come," just beckoned to come. Went up this really steep slope, got to this pasture where she had this kind of bivouac shack thing and a son as well, and all these goats and sheep.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent the night with them, and got up early in the morning, and the son had a mission to go and take this dead goat or sheep. It was a sheep, to market or somewhere. And so it's like, yeah, he'll take you, kind of, yeah. And he took me back onto the path,
Mm-hmm.
and that was it.
Okay.
Finally got to Chomrong.
Good.
And it was like this sense of, I was held by the universe. Even though I was making a mess in that moment of my life, like I'd wandered off the path, literally. There was,
But did you actually wander off the path?
well,
Was that a beautiful moment? Like,
it
yeah,
was, it was
yeah,
a-
literally you wandered off the path. But what I mean is, like, figuratively, did you actually wander off the path?
well, I needed to have that experience.
That's what I mean.
right? To show me that there is always help, there is always guidance, and that everything is being orchestrated.
I agree. Why do you think a lot of people nowadays are like, don't trust your gut feeling, don't trust your heart, trust your logic? Logically, you're supposed to hang on to that. Logically, you were supposed to hang on to that tree, not fall.
Yeah.
But you fell and you're okay. Why do you think more and more people now? I mean,
Well, I
I
let
disagree.
go.
Right.
That's the truth of it, and that is obviously
That's illogical.
figuratively
Yeah.
and literally let go.
Right. But logically, you're supposed to hang on to the tree because it's more safer than just letting go.
Yeah.
Because you actually listen to yourself. You listen to your gut feeling, as you could say, or you listen to your heart or your higher self.
Yeah.
Why is it more and more people now don't listen to that? They're like, or like, you're supposed to do something. You know how there's a saying, follow your heart, and it'll guide you to the right path? Most people don't do that. Like, no, logically speaking, you're supposed to make money and then grow rich, and then you could do your hobbies. And by that time, you're already 60. You're worn out. You're bitter. You're sad. You're on your second divorce, and you know,
Yeah,
and it's
well,
not really working out, and you already gave up on those dreams.
so why? The question why, again, it has many answers, but how long have you got? But
Dude,
there's this,
the
you
short
know,
answer.
there's this thing that we call ancestral healing,
Hmm.
that is becoming more of a thing now, becoming more widely talked about and more widely known and
More
kind of
widely accepted.
recognized.
By the way, I saw that at my grandpa's. I saw my grandpa that's passed away during Joe Dispenza's meditation, which I didn't really believe in that stuff before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, ancestral healing. Yeah,
Mm. So, and ancestral healing has many different variations, um, because yeah, because reality is so actually wonderfully infinitely complex, and it's not just, oh, it's just this, or oh, it's just that. Of course, it's never just one. There's a universe behind
yeah.
everything, and um, so in response to your question around this, why don't people follow their hearts? Um, well, survival,
Okay.
okay, um, which is,
You mean fight or flight state versus being in the present moment?
yeah, um, and there's a very real necessary need in certain levels of evolution to think about things like shelter and food, right? Then it becomes money and status, all right, to get along, get up, right, improve circumstances, the physical circumstances, so that, well, if I have children, then I can provide for them. They can have tutors. They can, make their way in the world. I can do everything possible for them. That I can have a car, that they can have a car, that my wife can have a car, or my boyfriend can have a car, or whatever it is, that we can go on adventures and holidays. So then, okay, I need to accumulate more money and more money, right? So there's all these obvious rational reasons, but it very soon becomes toxic because it becomes at the expense of everything else, at the expense of healing, at the expense of well-being, at the expense of health.
As I grow older, the more and more I see that in my friends, because they sacrifice their own happiness, and their own health, which is very important for money. I'm seeing that more and more. They're like, "Yeah, man, that's awesome that you're gonna travel. We're gonna do that too one day." And they're like drinking and just working like 12-hour days, stressed out, and then
It's toxic.
yeah, it is big time toxic.
It, in it's we need people need to recognize this and become aware of it, because there sometimes is very little time and edge between doing this toxic thing but getting by to this toxic thing becoming cancer, for this to this toxic thing becoming a heart attack, for this toxic thing to becoming a car crash, right, or something. And so if we can nip it in the bud, we can see it early and go, hey, this doesn't actually work for me, really, truly. But you need that clarity, right? We all need that clarity. And that's what things like meditation, coaching,
That's where you come in.
yeah, that's where I come in,
Yeah, just
to
help.
help bring that clarity, because, we're our own worst liars,
We are, dude. Your
right?
mind is the most tactical liar to you. It will justify everything for you just to protect you.
To say
And
status quo, keep the
status
status
quo.
quo.
And you have to check it. And that's what we're talking about, getting out of your comfort zone.
It's so, so key to get out, to
Yeah.
be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Uh,
On the last note, dude, we could go for days. And but on the last note, I always like to end my podcast on this. What advice would you be able to give people that are just in a rut, or they're depressed, or they're sad, life is not going the way they want, other than them coming and seeking you for help, and which you can do it online, right?
yep, absolutely.
Cool. I'll leave your info. But what advice would you be able to give everyone? Just like a little bit of advice, Some people say just breathe. Um, what would you be able to tell 'em?
You know, one thing that keeps coming up, and it's probably the most uncomfortable thing: honesty,
Honesty, internal honesty,
inner honesty.
like look in the mirror and just be blatantly honest with yourself.
Yeah, honest with self.
Yeah.
Really, really honest.
I've been told if you want to be really honest with yourself, just get butt naked, turn on all the lights, and stand in front of a mirror, and just ask yourself questions.
That's beautiful. That's
Yeah.
very helpful practice.
Yeah. And like, who's gonna lie to you?
Yeah,
You time to yourself.
you know, the inner honesty then also propagates out to outer honesty. So
Yeah.
to be honest with who you're with at any given time and actually just be real. I have $1 million in the bank, but I'm unhappy. I'm actually deeply, deeply unhappy. And how can I get help?
Just ask for help.
Yeah, ask for help.
I think that's
Or
key.
I have $100 in the bank, but and I'm really, really, really actually alive and having the best day ever. But I would like to know how to make more money to support myself and support my family.
Welcome to Guatemala.
Right?
I see a lot of happy people here, dude, that are poor, dirt poor. But I was
Right.
walking around, and I actually took a step back, and I just stopped in Pana, and these people were just happy, bro, with their families, selling like whatever, like coconuts on the street, laughing, joking around with their kids.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy crap, bro, that's happiness.
Yeah. And there's joy, and you see
Yeah.
it, and they
There's-
live in a different universe.
They do, brother.
They really, really do live in a different
And
universe.
they're happy.
We
Yeah.
all live in different universes, but there are versions of those universes that some of us share. And you know, you and I, we share this Western civilization universe where we have health care and we have all 100 different kinds of restaurant we can go to.
But that comes out of price.
Yeah, right. And these people they're in their Lake Atitlan universe with their Lake Atitlan history and their Mayan cosmovision histories and their oppression from the Catholic, colonists' histories and everything else that's playing into what they're experiencing now. But if you just take the average person on this lake, look in their eyes, it's a different universe.
They're happy, bro.
To where you're from or where I'm from.
They might work
right?
longer than us, but they're not miserable. I can tell you that.
Exactly.
They're generally happy, dude. Especially
That's
like
the majority.
Yeah, the majority. I mean, yeah, there has to be some sad ones.
Of course,
but the majority are happy.
Alcoholism.
Yeah. Trust me, there's alcoholism in the States too, dude. A lot. There's a lot of pill poppers too.
There's so much, right?
Yeah.
And I've been through that myself. It's
so that would be
that
your
toxicity, and it's also ancestral as well. My father drank. My grandparents drank.
Well, I'm breaking that.
So it's also like this, and we need to, it's about having the clarity to say, okay, I don't want to do this anymore because it doesn't work. It really doesn't work. I'm not genuinely happy. I'm not activated. I'm not empowered genuinely. What does it really need? Maybe it needs me to go to bed at 9 p.m. and get up at 5 and meditate and do yoga or go for a run or go for a swim and pray, do a ceremony, make an offering, do affirmations,
help thy neighbor,
do some writing, help thy neighbor, go and make a contribution to someone's life, and that can be the radical shift.
But first,
we need clarity first.
Yeah,
you need to know what the hell is up and what is wrong.
So be blatantly honest. Just be aware that you are alcoholic or you have some drinking problems.
Is a big one.
Yeah, workaholic is a big one too.
It's very toxic.
Yeah, I know a lot of beautiful girls that are workaholics too, and they always complain about not having like a good relationship. I'm like, well, you know what, like, maybe you work too much.
And ultimately, it's all based on a misunderstanding
of themselves, though.
Of themselves and of the nature of reality, and that's often manifests as lack, actually a lack. And I gotta build this. And, right, you made $100 million and you still feel lack.
Sucks for you. Okay, that's all the time we have for our podcast. That's actually pretty good, dude. we didn't have to do this again.
Love to.
I would love to too.
Yeah,
Thank you for that. I will definitely leave your information
sure.
so people to reach out to you. He does do it virtually. Um, he's in Guatemala now, but hey, that doesn't matter. He's actually an awesome place, so he's a lot happier. Jody, thanks again for jumping on my podcast. I appreciate the wisdom actually. And ladies and gentlemen, since you liked this episode, I'm sure you really did. Go ahead and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.